Hello and welcome to Wasted Plotential, where we discuss the wasted potential of our favourite plotlines. With MK finally giving story presence to DLC characters via the MK11 Aftermath expansion, I think now's a good time to get around to this episode theme. Yes, theme. The other NetherRealm games are going to get this treatment as well. The idea is to imagine the DLC characters being given some sort of story role within the existing narrative without having to alter any of the existing scenes. Something cheap and easy just to make the characters feel more integrated, but not quite as elaborate and no doubt expensive as Aftermath. For 2011, I'm thinking that the DLC characters could be put into a small side campaign with 2 to 4 fights each. Our characters are Scarlet, Kenshi, Rain, and Freddy Krueger. I was going to make these simple 2-fight stories, but the episode was only going to be 3.5 minutes long, so let's double that. We begin with a round of prequel stories that introduce us to the 3 characters. Scarlet has just been completed and Shao Kahn pits her against the Tarkatan to test her abilities. Kenshi is manipulated by Shang Tsung to release the souls of his ancestors for the sorcerer to steal, costing him his sight. His sword guides him to almost win, but Shang is able to get away. And Rain is part of an Edenian rebel faction that joins Shao Kahn during the invasion of Edenia. He is dispatched to capture the fleeing Sindel, earning him Khan's favour. The story then moves into the tournament event. Kenshi sneaks onto the island to kill Shang Tsung. He encounters Bi-Han and fights him as a nod to Kenshi's friendship with Kuai Liang in the original timeline. Shang Tsung arrives and imprisons Kenshi, who remains captive until the tournament ends, eventually escaping his cell and finding a portal to Outworld. Rain, meanwhile, is revealed to have been secretly observing the tournament and encounters Cyrax shortly after his chapter concludes. Rain attacks Cyrax for betraying Outworld, allowing Sector to take Cyrax back to the Lin Kuei for cyberization. And Scarlet was already present on the island in the story mode, so she is there to observe. She secretly witnessed Katana's loss to Liu Kang and threatens to tell Khan. They fight and Scarlet decides not to tell him, instead intending to lord this over Katana for her own benefit. And here's what was originally going to be the whole thing. One can just about hear Shang Tsung calling for Kenshi to fight Reiko in the Outworld tournament, so we resume there. Kenshi takes down Reiko in a cutscene and his next opponent is sent in. Rain. Kenshi wins a second time and heads off to rest before his next fight. Khan dispatches Scarlet to spy on him, not wanting this powerful wildcard to disrupt his plans. Sensing her presence and wary of her intentions, Kenshi strikes first and Scarlet emerges the victor. Scarlet goes to finish him off, but Rain intervenes. His pride's been wounded by his defeat and he won't allow someone else to kill Kenshi. Rain takes Scarlet down and lets Kenshi go, on the grounds that he'd give him a rematch someday. Kenshi limps back to the arena in time to witness Shao Kahn's defeat. With Shang Tsung so heavily surrounded by Khan's other enforcers, Kenshi has to retreat to plan his next move. The story then jumps to the invasion. All 3 characters are now in New York. I'd have Kenshi fight Ermac, but that poor bugger already loses twice in this one portion of the main plot, so we'll cut him some slack. Instead, he takes down Baraka in a cutscene to explain his absence from this portion of the story. Scarlet ambushes Katana and Jade and manages to take Katana down before having a proper fight with Jade. As Scarlet goes for the finisher, Kenshi shows up. He defeats Scarlet this time and sends the other 2 on their way. Scarlet escapes while he's distracted with Jade and Katana. Rain, meanwhile, makes his move against Raiden, a target given to him by Khan to earn back his favour after attacking Scarlet earlier. With his power diminished by the invasion, Raiden is defeated. Sonya and Jax show up to reinforce him and send Raiden into retreat before returning to the church where Raiden set up his headquarters. In the epilogue, each character is seen in the aftermath of the invasion. A tired and wounded Kenshi wanders through the rubble and comes across the soldiers Sub-Zero saved at the bell tower. They take him to get medical attention at an army outpost, setting up Kenshi joining the SF in MKX. Scarlet returns to Outworld with no Khan to serve. She encounters Reiko, who wants to recruit her to his cause, setting the stage for the MKX comic. And Rain returns to Outworld where Melina is mourning her father's death. He approaches and offers her his service, leaving it ambiguous as to whether he makes this offer out of sympathy or purely to advance his own goals. Finally, in a separate story, Freddy Krueger fights his way out of hell and murders a young woman and her police officer father. He is then confronted by Johnny Cage, who is also killed, before the camera pulls back to reveal the set where Freddy's actor expresses surprise that Johnny Cage can let go of his ego long enough to not play the hero. Johnny replies that it's time for a new generation to take the spotlight in Hollywood while he joins the SF. Plus, he's got a hot date tonight. Altogether, this helps to fill in a few holes in the main plot and, I think, makes for a fairly believable addition to the story that doesn't feel like a contrived retcon of background interference the way, say, Devora being slotted into the MK2 portion felt. Obviously, this was all written with the benefit of hindsight and knowledge of where the series went from here, but there's no reason the writers at NetherRealm couldn't have had an idea where the plot would go post 2011 and planned the DLC story accordingly. Now we just have to wait and see if Aftermath can do anything this interesting with its much less compelling source material. If you liked this video, why not subscribe and support me on Patreon like these fine people here? If not, then make sure to share it with your enemies so they can suffer along with you. Today's recommended video is Mortal Kombat in Japan by Censored Gaming. I mean, there's not really much to say about it. The title pretty much explains exactly what you're getting, but it's interesting to watch. I don't think an MK game has actually released in Japan since 2 or 3, so it makes it really weird that the Japanese anime high score girl actually has a scene dedicated to an MK game. That shit's wild.